welcome to the Ask and Grow webinar. Hi everyone, I am Asha. I am the head brand and communications at IIAD, Indian Institute of Art and Design. And I'm very happy to welcome you all on this at this webinar organized by And Academy. And Academy, as you all know, is the motto of And Academy is design education, making design education accessible, affordable, and industry relevant. And to this end, we are presenting a webinar with Snehanshu Mukherjee and Mansi Almadi, who are industry leaders in architecture and design. Snehanshu, Professor Interior Architecture and Design at IIAD, comes with a rich 38 years of experience in the field of architecture and design. And he has this unique blend of being an industry expert along with a 30-year experience in design education. He won the first prize as National Architecture Design Competition for the National Gallery of Modern Art, and thus formed his brand called Team for Engineering, Architecture and Management, where he has been in practice for over 38 years as a founder and partner. Snehanshu has a huge gallery of rich projects that he's handled throughout his long career, among which, just to name a few, are the Oxford Book Chain, Osho World Boutiques in Delhi and Kolkata, the Tollygunge Club Library in Kolkata, exhibitions by Snehanshu. Some of his exhibitions designed by Snehanshu are Rabindranath Tagore's 150th birth anniversary exhibition, Amrita Shergill's Passionate Quest exhibition for the National Gallery of Modern Art, and a lot more. Mansi with us. She's an interior architect graduate from IIAD itself, and she's a part of our young professional team who are paving the way for future of their discipline. She's been working with Studio Lotus as the interior designer, and her area of interests are experiential space designs and commercial space designs. Now, Snehanshu, it's over to you. You can start with the presentation. I think everyone's eagerly waiting to get into it and understand what we know about interior design.
So I'm just going to step in for a minute, and I'm just going to check from our counselors if they would like us to wait for another couple of minutes, because I'm getting some messages.
Sure, we can do that.
So can somebody from the course advisors team tell us that if you would like us to wait for a couple of minutes before we start, or should we start?
Yes, ma'am, we should wait for 2 minutes, 2 more minutes, and then we can start.
Right. So, so in the meanwhile, everybody can listen to Snehanshu and me and Mansi talk while we wait for a few other people to join in. And
I think I would like to introduce Mansi a little more, because Asha did a rather grand job at my introduction. So for those who don't know, Lotus Designs, Studio Lotus is where Mansi has been working after she finished with her graduation at the IIAD. Mansi has been one of the top students of her batch, and we have specially asked her to come today, though she's no longer a student with us, simply because she has a huge work experience. She's a very creative designer, and what we have asked her to do is requested her is to show one of her undergrad works, because if she shows her current professional work, I think it'll take us off track, because what is important for this course is to understand how we would like to teach this course and what all you can do once you have learned the course, for which Mansi will present a very interesting project, not a typical interior design project at all. And that's the other reason why we requested Mansi to come, for you to get an idea what a huge range you can get into once you've completed a course in interior design.
Yeah.
So we'll wait.
So it's very interesting, Snehanshu, and I know we are embarrassing Mansi by this conversation, but it's interesting that she started her education journey with me and finished it with you.
Yeah.
So between you and me, we've seen her entire journey, and that's great. While we wait, Snehanshu, I was just thinking, I just want to pick your brains over, you are an architect and that's what you've done. And I have had the good fortune of also working with you in a professional space, apart from working with you as an academic colleague.
Yes.
So, I always wonder, and the other day we were also discussing this in office that civil engineering, for structural engineering, for architecture, और interior design ऐसे word की तरह use होता रहता था, है ना? But abhi, I know it's a very strong buzzword and all of that. And I even today, I don't know, I'm not quoting any statistics, but generally from my experience, अगर 10 लोगों को डिजाइन में इंटरेस्ट है तो 3 उनमें से आर्किटेक्चर वाले तो होंगे, ठीक है? मतलब एक मोटा मोटा मैं बोल रही हूँ 30% of the people interest in design, including me by the way, starts with architecture, है ना?
Right. Yeah.
So architecture is a very very old profession with respect, if I may say.
Yeah.
How have you seen in the 40 years of your working this movement from architecture to interior, and where do you see the industry today? Because aspirationally it is architecture that we keep talking about, right? So where do you, what's this journey of this discipline that you have seen?
Yeah. So that's a very interesting question, because if I was asked this question maybe say 20 years ago, even 15 years ago, I would have said that, yes, interior design is there and there are a lot of interior designers, but the fun of doing architecture is greater, or there's a lot of scope as an architect. But what has happened, over these last 15 years or so is that in the big cities, especially the metro cities, the space for an architect to make a new building has got more and more limited. Because as we all know, architects work with new buildings, greenfield projects, and that's what they prefer to do. But that has reduced hugely over a period of time. Also, what has happened is that a lot of the real estate projects are such where they are not designing for any, or the architects involved in that are not designing for any specific organization or office or even a house for that matter. They are generic designs. And that is why interior designers have become a very sought after profession these days. Even if somebody buys a flat, for that matter, I know people who move in, they rent a flat and they want to get the interiors done. And for somebody who buys a flat, one of the things is that they want to shape it to their liking and their preferences. And that's where the interior designer comes in. In the past, it was limited to just painting the walls a certain color and choosing curtains and all of that. But I think it has become an aspirational thing to get your interiors designed if you can afford to employ an interior designer. And what I've also seen is that, yes, those who don't want to employ an interior designer, I think they're shortchanged, because what happens is they are advised by the contractors, and these contractors are not necessarily the best of. I mean, there are very well qualified and experienced contractors, but I'm talking about the local contractors who have limited knowledge about how to do something. And that is where the kind of designs that are being done locally are not really interior design, in my opinion. It's a question of chance if it works out to be nice. So I think interior design today has a huge impact. And also what has happened, is that architecture, as I said, is slowly, coming down in scale, in the sense that at the moment there should be around 500 colleges of architecture. When I studied architecture, there was probably just about 6 or 8 of them. So it mushroomed, and it is therefore going to, now decline, which is the natural order of things. But on the other hand, interior design as a course was, in fact, earlier it was confined to polytechnics. And that had its own limitations, Whereas today, there are specific courses on interior design, and is actually trying to do the same, where you don't need to spend all the time that you require for a full-time course like Mansi has. Mansi spent 4 years and therefore she's an interior architect. But for those who don't have the time and who are already pursuing another interest or profession, but they have a keen interest in becoming an interior designer, then this is the course that will help because it is at the comfort of your home or your office, wherever you are. You don't have to come anywhere physically. There are only 3 classes and so on and so forth, which we will discuss
Yeah.
a little later in the day. So I think I've already begun by talking about what is interior design and how is it different from
No,
interior styling. Yes, that's a new word.
yeah, so we'll come to that. I just wanted to sort of close this conversation, that, and I think it's an interesting way to start today's webinar. And I was just recalling, my own family house, which is now 52 years old, is built in what would today be called as the heart of the city, right? In South Delhi, along the outer ring road.
Yes.
But when it was being built, my father recalls that from this spot, from the ground, he could see the Qutub Minar. So there was so much land available for us to construct. And the whole idea in India of roti kapda makan, where do you save and invest your money? Everyone was saving their money, land lete the, ghar banate the, and like you said, contractor की मदद से कुछ जब थोड़ा पैसा है तो एक कमरा बनाया, दूसरा बनाया, that's what was happening. Now we actually, unfortunately or whatever, we filled the land. Now cities are growing vertical. And now that also has happened. The vertical growth has also. And no longer is it possible for me to buy a plot of land and build my own house. So at best, what I can do, because my entire life, is built around the ghar. I want a certain ownership of कि ये मेरा है, जब भी मैं रह रही हूँ, जब भी ले रही हूँ. तो अब हमें we buy the ढांचा and then we do the interiors, and that's how we make it our home.
That's right. You personalize it.
Yeah. So I say that even I say pehle factories, people were building their factories, saving in their business, building their factories. Dukaan banani hai. Everything was literally built from ground above.
That's right.
But right now, the way the economy is working, there's somebody who will build the commercial space, and then I'll get a bit of it the way I want to do. Whatever I need, and whenever I can buy, whatever I can buy.
Yes.
And then I'll make it my own, personalize it.
You transform. You basically transform it.
Right.
And that's where the interior designer comes in.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we will discuss all this because there is a point towards the end. I think in the presentation we talk more specifically about the difference between an architect and an interior designer.
Absolutely. So I'm going to let you now go and talk about it.
Yeah.
And we'll start with what is interior design. And over to you, Snehanshu.
Okay. Thank you, Prachi. So we've already done a kind of a teaser as to what is interior design. And what you see on the slides is basically what we were just saying, which is to transform any space, any kind of space, to very specific needs for human activity to take place. Because we are living, whether we are in an office situation or a shop or a cinema hall or your own house, these are all living spaces which we inhabit, and we need to be able to live in them functionally and comfortably and feel happy about living there. And I'm sure a lot of you may have experienced this if you think back, that certain spaces appeal to you, you feel happy about it, or they excite you maybe, or it is something that that makes you feel good. And yet there are certain spaces which can make you feel uneasy, or it can make you feel not too happy about where you are. Of course, by design, certain places are designed that way, which are deliberately designed to make you feel unhappy. But sometimes there are designs that were not intended to make you feel unhappy, but by chance it has become that way. And that is a quality of design that is making you feel one way or the other. So it is also, like it says here, about the usability of each square foot of space. Because an architect who makes the shell is not really concerned about exactly how you're going to use it. Whereas an interior designer needs to really figure it out. And these days, with the way prices are of real estate, you need to get the most out of it. So one of the best examples internationally is Japanese houses in Tokyo and houses in Hong Kong. There are a lot of YouTube videos which talk about these things. But back here in India, if you look at an average flat in Mumbai and you look at a flat anywhere else, there's a huge difference in the way the sizes are, the sizes of rooms, even bathrooms, and how people in Mumbai live. Now, all of this is really about what an interior designer can do, which starts with visualization. Then you plan all of the interior space through ideation and experimentation, and then you apply what you have designed into the final construction of that space. So, therefore, what is the difference between interior styling and decoration and interior design? So, styling and decoration, if I may use the word, is a little more superficial. You only do a few things, like you choose colors, you do some kind of moldings, you choose your furniture, but it does not necessarily create a new space. It transforms the space up to a point, but there is a limit to how much you can go. And what, of course, architects do is to actually make the building itself. There earlier on, as I was saying, 15, 20 years ago, architects would get involved in the design of the insides. But now, with this huge range of materials and various things that have come into the market today, it has become a situation where architects say, okay, now if I get into this, it will take up time from my other projects. Let's leave it to the interior designer. And so, what does therefore an interior designer do? Now, you'll notice that all the images that you're seeing are actually works from our students who create space. So the first thing that you do is to plan the space from the point of view of the user. That how would the user actually use that space? And you literally work in inches. Like if you think about it, you have a table and you have a chair and you have a wall behind this. You need at least 3 feet for the chair to move back. And if you don't have that 3 feet, what do? You may want to modify the table. You can't modify the chair because that is something that is according to your need of the body. At the same time, to use the example of the chair, you would have found, I'm sure a lot of you would have discovered, depending on your ergonomics, some chairs are really uncomfortable. And you have to do things to make it comfortable for yourself. So similarly, interior designers modify an existing building. You have a door at a certain position, which the way you arrange the furniture in the room doesn't allow you a clear-cut arrangement. So what do you do? If it is possible, you change the position of the door. You can do that with the window. Then, of course, you refurbish and remodel all of that. And you think of a theme. Now, the theme doesn't mean that the client says that let's do a Moroccan theme or a Spanish theme. Yes, clients may be saying that. But what we need to understand is that for the client, for the layperson, if they're talking about a certain theme, they may say Scandinavian theme. We need to decipher what is Scandinavian theme about. But you're still building in India. Of course, if you become famous and you're designing in Scandinavia, that's a different matter. But mostly we'll be building in India. And that too in different parts of this country. Each part of this country, region-wise, is very different culturally. So if somebody says Scandinavian, how do we interpret that to make sense? Because find the person whom you're designing for is an Indian and would have very typical Indian habits. So you need to get to know the family or the person that you're designing for, or the corporate organization that you're designing for. Or let's say if it's a hospitality project, what is it that you are really designing over here? What sort of food and so on and so forth. So this is what, in a nutshell, is what theme-based design is about. Then we come next to the next slide, which is material selection and lighting. Then supervision for construction documents on site. So it's not enough to just create these sort of views that you're seeing on the site. You must know how it's going to be built. And to build it, it involves many things. The choice of material, the kind of lighting you're going to do, how you're actually going to construct it. You have to coordinate with various vendors and industry professionals. Industry professionals meaning that when you carry out modifications, you must have a structural engineer involved. You should not be breaking down walls without consulting an engineer, which a lot of people do. And, there have been recent cases where there have been complete disasters because of certain things. And then you need to cost it. You need to quantify how much it will cost. so that you can explain it to the person who's hired you that, look, this is the cost and this is the justification for the cost. Otherwise, for the first time when you deal with your client, there's always this mistrust. Maybe the designer is inflating figures. So that is why your costing estimation should be accurate. And there are various methods by which you do it, which are industry standards. And then the last thing is really you see, your clients are not going to be able to understand drawings, which are two-dimensional, like plans, sections, elevations, because that is what you need to work with. So you do create three-dimensional visualizations, and you do them for yourself also. You can do it either by making physical models or digital models. And in certain cases where, let's say, the client is, willing to pay that sort of fee, you offshoot, you basically give it off to another agency who will do the photorealistic renders. Photorealistic renders is not what interior designers or architects do as a matter of course. They do the more basic kind of visualizations. And the kind of stuff that you see in real estate ads and all, they're all done professionally. And it takes hours of computer time to do it. So again, these are again points about what the interior designer can do.
Snehanshu, I just wanted to come in over here. When you spoke about the photo finish renders and this. So these images that you have used in this presentation or whatever.
These are the basic sort of renders.
These are the basic ones which an interior designer would do. But obviously these are not, this is not photo finish in which it will look like a, in an ad or whatever. I thought I'll just clarify.
No, that's a good point. So these are examples of what you can do after doing the course. So now we come to what an interior designer cannot do. So one is that they can't really mess around with the structure of the building, which is what I've already said. And they cannot make a new building. Even to do an extension to an existing building, I would suggest that you will need at least an engineer. And even better if you have an architect whom you can collaborate with, because what the engineer will really do is to sort out the structural aspects of it, maybe the plumbing aspects or the electrical aspects of it. But the design part is not really their forte. There are some exceptions, notable ones, no doubt. But on the whole, you would need an architect whom you need to collaborate with. So that was also the point we made a little earlier about being able to work with other professionals. So this is what an interior designer does not get into at all, because there's already enough on your plate. So now I will request Mansi, stop talking and request Mansi to take over to explain how an interior designer actually does the work. And she's the best person to take you through because he's a young professional and I'm switching off my microphone and camera.
Okay, thank you, sir. So I'll just speak about one of my projects from undergrad course. This was about a pop-up kiosk. The brief was about to create a portable experiential shop, which can be can be ported to another indoor space. And the thing was to display products of students from interior or art and design background and their products and artifacts. So this can display a product of any kind of design or any small scale products. So the journey started with the very initial space which I took in our institute, which was IIAD. And then I studied how the light, natural light and artificial light are coming in that space next to the staircase. What's the volume of that space, the area, and how can it affect my design, the height, and how can it affect with my concept, the experiential walkthrough, and how can people experience the product in different levels. So this gave me another ideas of how I can select the material, how I can go around, what would be the visibility, and how can people actually see the pop shop and go and buy a product. So the site gave me some few hints and tricks about how I can design my pop-up kiosk. Further, then I decided to talk to people who will be going to display their product on that kiosk. And I talked to various stakeholders, students, teachers, and the product makers and material lab holders and everyone who were actually working with material that can actually help me out to come up with like costing and details and what kind of things I can actually include to cut down on my cost and also to save on time, and how can actually it can affect my design strategy, like what can be the aesthetics be, like what is the purpose of the product which is being displayed, so how can it affect my aesthetic value, how can it be flexible that it can be ported to another space as well. So that's the idea which I came up with, which is walk through in different levels. So like how can people go around in different spaces and different levels, and they can experience small tiny products and actually see it from all sides. So I developed few sketches and 3D forms, like physical and 3D forms, and I explored that how a modular thing can actually be like a portable thing, and also a multifunctional thing, like how can one module act in a different ways. So that's the idea I came up with, that how one module can be fitted into another block, and then how blocks can be set apart and can be easily ported to another indoor space. So that's how I came up with, and coming up with my final drawings and models, how to see it in sight, that how the initial site will look like and how it can attract people at that site, and what kind of products I would like to display. So that was the initial very short plan of my model. So the other thing was the 3D renders, which I came up with in a physical model, just to understand the scale of it and how it can actually be installed in that space. That's all.
Mansi, I'm tempted to ask a few questions at this stage.
Sure.
Yeah, so
Sure.
just so that our audience can understand that how messy this process can be, and it's not all glam. So, like
Yeah.
everybody would expect this coming out of an interior design or any design person. This is something that we expect. But before you can reach this, I found it very interesting that you had this. This is like a sketch to some people will look like such a bad sketch, huh? But I
Yeah.
know this is how, and I want to come back to this slide and tell people, because I get this asked this so many times कि मुझे sketching नहीं आती, मैं designer बन सकती हूँ या नहीं बन सकती हूँ. तो ऐसा गंदा sketch बना के, क्योंकि ये बहुत valuable है. I can see in this how Mansi is trying to understand the space and how through those stick figures she's using to understand कि वो कैसे घूमेंगे, क्या होगा. Then there's this little, and I know that Mansi enjoys doing this, these little mock-ups that you do, small scale one, and then you try. So actually sketching and modeling, Mansi, has it helped you in your thinking?
Definitely. So the thing is, since it's a very back and forth process, sometimes we don't get stick to an idea and we go into the technical part, and then we say that where's our concept, where's our purpose, where is our purpose getting solved, so how can I actually come back to it. So that's where I can actually start sketching things out and stick to a purpose, and then take it to a technical detail level. So like sketching is something which can be in any situation, like it can be in a very creative point, it can be in a very frustrating point. Like that particular sketch at that time, I remember I was very frustrated in the afternoon. I just sketched it, like what do I want to do in that purpose, what do I want to come up, like how can I actually make people experience my product. So I just sketched it randomly, and I realized, oh yeah, this is something that is solving my problem, this is something that will actually give them experience. So I just revolved around it, and then I came up with physical models. Definitely physical models are more small scale, but next step can be creating models in 3D softwares which can actually help us and see and zoom in into that space and see how things can be. Like we do see physical models from eye level, but we can actually feel it. But if we use the software and actually we go dive into it, we can explore the space like how we do it in real life. So this process is back and forth, and this is something really helpful.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mansi. And I remember seeing this this prototype.
Yeah.
Very clearly, I remember.
One more thing I'd like to add here about the presentation that Mansi made is that for the audience, you have seen actually all the stages of a typical design process. And as they have been saying, it involves various sorts of techniques, from hand
Yeah.
drawn to digital.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing to also understand is that there are two things here. One is that this actually comes under the retail typology, but the difference is that this is not a shop. This is the pop-up. And today, if you go to any of the big malls, you will find these sort of things which are popping up within the atrium areas where people are walking. So what I wanted to point out is that as an interior designer, don't think that you are only doing the entire interior of a shop. You can actually be creating something as long as there's a roof above you and you're not worried about the structural conditions of the roof. You can actually be creating things which stay within a larger space, but which is a bit like what an architect does.
Yeah.
So that's the other interesting thing. And the kind of views that you're seeing here, whether it's the handmade model or these views, are also what we would be teaching you how to achieve without necessarily getting to the level where it becomes photorealistic, because that's all you really need to be able to design and convince somebody on the other side that, look, this is how this place will be. And so that way, this is a very important part of this presentation for everybody who's interested in this course to realize what it is all about. So thank you very much, Mansi, and I will just
Okay. Thank
complete this
you.
presentation. And so as I said, one last word I had said, and I'd remind people again that I deliberately asked Mansi not to show her, the post-college work, because that is something else altogether. So, and she's worked on very large projects, which is possible only if you have done a longer course maybe, or you have worked in the field for a long time and all of that. So this course is for 26 weeks. It's part-time, it's evening classes, 3 times a week, 2 hours each time. And it involves your own effort as well in between the classes. But the way we planned it is that in the 2 hours, it varies, but roughly there'll be two 20-minute sessions where we explain things and we give a kind of a lecture or a webinar on what that day's topic is. And then the 40 and 40-minute slots are where you actually do the work in class with interaction with us and your peers. And then you take it on to your own time and you bring it back for the next class. So this is roughly the way the teaching will happen, so that you're not really left on your own. So what will you learn? So this is how the weeks progress. So it starts with principles of design, which are the basic fundamentals for everybody to get used to design thinking and what are the components of design. Then we move to ideation and concept development, and therefore being able to interpret themes. And then you go into the client presentations, how to, like, the kind of stuff. So all of this you've been seeing in Mansi's presentation with the 3D modeling, and then also doing the construction drawings, the architectural drawings that will allow you to give them to the site where a contractor can execute it. But it's not just for the contractor. For you yourself as a designer, you need to make these scale drawings where you solve all the constructional issues, so that even if you are getting it built, you know exactly how it's going to be built. And these construction drawings are what will tell you about the costing as well. So then, of course, we move on to surface finishes and all the sourcing of various materials and products that are required, how to source. There are all kinds of tricks that a professional knows, which we would be imparting to you when you talk to your vendors. And then, of course, the whole thing about fundamentals of Vastu Shastra, because these days it's very important. But remember, these are only fundamentals of Vastu Shastra. Vastu Shastra is a very evolved, and a lot of people may feel that it is actually a sort of witchcraft, but I know for sure it isn't. I believe in the real Vastu Shastras as written down in the text, not what practitioners will come and scare you with, that you don't put this room there and you will die, or whatever they tell you. So it's not that, but the real thing. And then, of course, we look at what sort of a business model will suit you at the end of this course. And then the most important thing is the portfolio, because before you get any job, you have to be able to show what you're capable of. And that is where a professional level portfolio, and that's what we will teach you, will take you onto a practice of interior, whether you do it on your own or you want to work for somebody or work with somebody. This is what will assure the other side that yes, you are capable and you should be able to do the job. The other thing is, of course, what will you create? So there are two things that we will focus on. The first one will be the residential interior, and the second one is what we are calling commercial. But what we intend to do is that the cohort decides that in the commercial bit, what they would like to design, whether it is a small office space or a restaurant or a small shop. So there are these three options. The cohort takes a vote on this. So whichever numbers are the higher ones, we'll go with that. And of course, you would be given real projects, in the sense real sites, whether you select your own site or we give you a site, whichever way, real sites, not hypothetical vague sites, because without that, you won't really learn how to design. There are all kinds of parameters that a real site poses, right from the weather to the orientations to the kind of electrical connections you're getting, where the plumbing is. So all of that comes only when you have a real site. So both these we'll do through a real site selection. And then, of course, comes the career opportunities that you can look forward to. So I feel, and as you, for those of you who were here in the beginning when Prachi and I were discussing, it's actually residential interiors which are the maximum number, because everybody needs a house to stay in. Everybody may not need a separate office, but we have the home office today, which is again another area, because I know during the pandemic, there were friends calling me up asking for advice, that what do we put in, where, how should we locate the home office, what sort of furniture shall we have? So now residential interior is one big thing. Commercial interiors, of course, but then that depends on your connections, in the sense that how many people do you know who wants, whether it's a restaurant done or a shop done or whatever. Then it comes to home decor itself. So that's maybe not just the entire interior, but you're advising on the decor part of it and the styling part of it, which we talked about. Then, of course, like the project you saw of Mansi's, is very close to being an exhibition designer, which then adds up with the visual merchandiser and the store display designer. So the pop-up design that you saw is very similar to these two. And of course, you can be a freelance designer or a design consultant, or you could start your own business, which is that it's a design and build. The correct word for it is turnkey, which means that you design, you finish the project and turn the key and hand it over to the client. That is what turnkey projects mean. So there are all kinds of opportunities. Yes, Prachi.
And Snehanshu, I'm assuming that builders and even people who deal with or trade in products for the interiors would hire an interior designer, because when I go and if I want to buy a apartment in there is one or two apartments which are already done,
the sample ones, yes,
the sample flat,
yes.
So they need and I also know that for example Oma, which is a big brand of interior products. So do you want to just talk a little bit about
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So yes, so basically, as we are seeing, more than architecture's interiors that is ruling the roost. And there are both these options are available, where you have real estate people who would like not just the flat interior to be done, but very often they make a clubhouse. So the interiors of that as well. Then, of course, you have these product sellers, the people who sell luxury products, especially because they are the ones who give a free service to the buyer, where they create visualizations. They go to these people's homes or offices, and they do the design, and they create visualizations which show how a particular piece of furniture or an object or a painting, how will it sit in such an interior. So they end up actually doing the entire interior all over again. So that's another area. So there are always these companies who are looking for interior designers who can work with them. And these are actually very important job experiences which enrich you and make you more confident and increase your experience levels, so that you can actually then start off on your own. And the same goes for store displays. Store display is an art by itself. I mean, there are books written on it, and some people. So basically, you have to find what you're interested in, what you have the knack in. It's not possible that, I mean, you may be able to do some of them, but it's rarely you'll find a person who can do all of these things. So you need to find out your niche. And if you develop your niche, then your competition in the marketplace reduces, because then people come to you because you are good at this, and they choose accordingly. So
In
that
fact,
also happens.
Snehanshu, I'm just when you were talking now, I recalled a personal story. So I'm not a interior designer nor an architect, but I did the kitchen for my parents, and it was micro designed. Every dibba was measured, and all of that. So I used to do the sourcing for all, and that was just the time when the modular kitchen was coming into, and I was going and buying the stuff.
Right.
And I mean, as a designer, I always had my sketches and everything. And your own family can be the toughest client.
Absolutely.
So the vendors who were selling this offered me a project कि मैडम आप हमारे लिए यहाँ पे डिस्प्ले के लिए किचन बना दीजिए, आपके बड़े अच्छे
आइडियाज अच्छे हैं आपके
आइडिया बड़े अच्छे हैं और आपको बड़ा समझ में आ रहा है कि what do women want, so why don't you make this thing.
Yeah, yeah.
I know that there are those kind of jobs also.
Yes, absolutely. So there are various companies, like the Jindals have launched that the stainless steel Magpie brand kitchens, modular kitchens. Then there was an earlier company, I've not heard of them recently, called Vedita Kitchen, which actually started the consultancy thing. So they would design the kitchen according to your kitchen. It's not like you just go and buy up things and just fit it in somehow. So yeah, there are a lot of different opportunities of specializing. Actually, this becomes more like a specialist, which I was saying is like your niche. You find your niche, and the opportunities are huge. I feel that architects that way, unfortunately, are losing out to interior designers and interior architects. But that's okay. I mean, a lot of architects, as we know, have shifted. There are firms which do to run separate verticals. So where Mansi works in Lotus, they have separate verticals on architecture and interiors. Similarly, there are architects who have shifted entirely into just interior design. Yeah. So some of the well-known interior designers earlier on, whom when we were doing the Oxford bookstore, there was Prakash Mankar from Bombay. So I became friends with him because he was doing the Park Hotel and I was next door doing the Oxford, and we were staying in the same hotel. So I used to talk to him, and he's an architect by training. So I asked him, why did you choose to? So he said, in Bombay, there's less scope. Those days, even less scope to make buildings. And there were many more people who wanted interiors done. So he became a very famous interior designer and specializing in hotels. So 5-star hotels. So like that, the trend has been there, but today it has become very, very prominent, this whole field. So I'll invite Asha instead now to take us through.
Thank you, Snehanshu. Thank you, Mansi, for such an insightful presentation. And absolutely, in this very short time, we got to know exactly how a lot of things happened with interior design, right from conception to the various stages of sketching, getting frustrated with everything, and then getting back on. And of course, you guys have already started the conversation on the number of opportunities available in field of interior design. I think this is also from Snehanshu. We were having a conversation, or Suyash was having a conversation when Snehanshu said that and on an average, an architect gets around 3,000 to 7,000 rupees per square feet, whereas for an interior designer, it starts from 4,000 and might go up to 70,000 per square feet.
No. Let me explain this a little bit.
Yes.
When she says 3,000 to 4,000, that's not exactly how it works, but the figure is right. So what happens really is that when an architect designs a building, they get paid as a percentage of the total cost of the project. Now, typically the architect gets paid for a residential project if it is a repetitive project, in the sense that the flats are copied again in blocks. They would make only 1.5%. when it comes to of the total cost project, but then a housing estate can cost several crores. So it's not such a small fee. But if it comes to, let's say, a house, the cost of making a house, let's say today, without the interiors or the fittings or the furnishings, is around 3,000 to 4,000 rupees a square foot. That's where this figure is coming from. So they would make anything from 5 to 8% of the total cost of construction, where the total built-up area is calculated, thumb rule, around 4,000 rupees a square foot. Now, in that same house, if there is an interior designer who's next hired, and the owner really wants to go to town with the design, then there's no limit to how much the square foot cost works out. It can be anything. It can be just 5,000 onwards. It depends on what the interior designer has designed and what therefore the client has requested the designer to design. Because if you're going to use, let's say, Greek marble, or even better, if you talk about now a very rare marble, the Makrana marble, which is what the Taj is made of, which the mines have almost got exhausted. The current cost, I think, I'm guessing, when long ago I had inquired, I'd gone to Makrana. Those days itself, it was like twice the cost of imported marble. Today, it must be around 8 to 10,000 a square foot, just the cost of the marble. So now that's a small component that you put into the interior. If you add this up, your square foot cost of the interior alone is more in the range of 6 to 10,000 or higher. And then you charge a percentage on that, right? So therefore, the fees that the interior designer is making is probably more in the case of such projects than the architect makes. Whereas the headaches are greater for the architect because he has to get the plan sanctioned and make sure that it is built. After that, the interior designer moves in and works in greater detail. So that's the comparison, actually.
But Snehanshu, I just want to add this for all the young designers as well as aspiring designers. This is no reason for you to jack up the cost of the project just so that, because I think there is something
There is a
professional ethics as well.
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
so be true to your stakeholders and your this thing. Asha, just take us through, continue to, yeah.
Yes. So yes, as we can see that there is a huge demand for interior designers. We are constantly talking about this entire phenomena where real estate might be there's a limit to real estate, but interiors, there is absolutely no limit. These are a few statistics. Can we go back to the first? Yeah. So this is in India Today's 2022 report, which says there are 1 lakh plus interior designers required in India. And a couple of more statistics, yes, 8.5% average year-on-year growth rate for interior design industry in India till 2050. Again, increase in interior design market valuation by 2027 from the current would be around $23 billion. Which is huge. These are some current snapshots from today about the number of job openings in interior design on Naukri.com and other job portals. As you can see, the numbers are somewhere around 1,90,000 jobs today, and more such jobs. And these are sort of places that you can look at. So interior designer or a 3D visualizer. So wherever you find your niche, like Prachi and Snehanshu, everyone were talking about, when you're learning design, you can obviously find your niche. It may be in retail, commerce, home interiors, office interiors, or you might just pick up 3D designing, whatever interests you. These are the sort of brands that are require interior designers. Obviously, a lot of other places, but just to name a few: Home Lane, IKEA, Life Space, Arrive, Asian Paints, big brands, big names that you would get associated with. Oh yes, and these at IIAD's interior architecture and design, these are the places that we have already placed our students at. So IIAD students are already working for brands like Mangrove Collective, Office Banao, Design Plus, The Concrete Story, Morphogenesis, huge big brands, and they still require more designers. There is a more demand than supply. The demand is higher for interior designers than the supply that we are currently
in
at.
fact, if I were to interject right here, Asha,
Yes,
I was having a discussion the other day about our upcoming exhibition, and I was telling the head of placements that I'm calling a lot of other architecture firms or interior designer firms. He said, please don't tell them we have students to hire anymore because we run out of students. So just to validate what you just said, I thought I would mention this is very recent, just a couple of days ago.
Yeah, actually, we are not producing trained
Enough.
interior
Yeah.
designers enough, and therefore it's almost like I mean, architects who are doing this job and then learning, because of course they may know how to build a building, but this is slightly different, and some startups
Different stream of designing, and that is something that probably they have to learn, or probably then they have to leave their architect job and start getting into interior designing all in one. And yeah, so here are a few of our students who have started their own design firms, like Vanya Verma's Vanya Design Company. These are a very recent graduates from IIAD. Of course, there are many other graduates from IIAD who have started up their own design firms and consultancy firms. Simran has a brand called The Good Room. Fejen's Litmus Meroform events and exhibition. So exhibition design, of course, is another field. Parts, Felix design. So absolutely, there's no limit to what you can do and the number of things that you can carve your niche for. And uh, of course, as Snehanshu has already talked about, the 26-week intensive program that And Academy offers in interior design, where you have the experts and the most seasoned faculty and mentors who will take you through the entire course in depth with everything, all the knowledge to gear you up absolutely perfectly for the industry. At this point, I think we have been doing a lot of questions in between, but we can, I think, officially start the Q&A session. Prachi, of course, Prachi here, we have been having such insightful inputs from her in between, but yes, Prachi is the Deputy Head Academics for And Academy, and she's been with IIAD since its inception and has a 20 plus, more than 20 years of education in design as a design professional and educator. So Prachi, over to you. I think we can start having the questions.
Yes. So I'll request the attendees to put in their question in the Q&A, and Snehanshu and Mansi will be happy to answer them. And wherever I can pitch in about specifically about And Academy, I'll do that. I've just gone from a full screen view to this view, because otherwise I'm not able to see the Q&A. So my apologies for the fact that I've compromised your visual experience on the screen. Swatika has put up a question that since the eligibility for this course is just 18 plus, is the course good enough to become an interior designer without any degree? Will this be equivalent to a degree? So I'm going to start by answering the question, and then I'll hope that Snehanshu can at some point add to it. Swatika, I think, we are comparing two different things, right? And I think I'll look at your question in two parts. One is this good enough to become a good interior designer? That's one question. The second question is it equivalent to a degree? No, obviously not. I dare not say it. I will be taking away the effort that students and teachers put into a 4-year degree program if I say that a 26-week program can give you the same level of expertise as a 4-year program. And I'm not going to be claiming anything wrong, false over here. Obviously not. I think it's common sense. But is it good enough for you to become a interior designer? I'll answer it in two ways. The short answer would be yes. But then, ये जो good word होता है ना, ये बड़ा टेढ़ा सा होता है. ठीक है? Good तो शायद 4 साल के बाद भी नहीं होते हो. Good तो over years and years of practice होते हैं. See, any educational qualification, what is it supposed to do? It it puts you in a position where you can enter a industry and be functional in that industry, be good enough to contribute sensibly, meaningfully to the industry, and be answerable to your clients. That client is your boss, your employer, that client is an end user, whatever. That this course will do, right? I always say this to our four-year graduates also, that your learning hasn't stopped. It is actually beginning. Mansi, am I right? Are you continuing to learn even after putting 4 years into interior design course?
Definitely, definitely. I mean, every year something or other thing is changing, and we get to learn a lot more after stepping into the real world. As in, communication is something that definitely we have communication with our peers and faculties and everyone in college time, but the real communication with the client and the vendor is something that we practice in real life. So that is different, very different.
So so what this 26 week course will do is that it will enable you to enter the industry. Whether you will be good or not good, वो तो मतलब parameters बड़े अलग से होते हैं. But I at least believe as a professional and as a teacher that you only get good and better with time, right? So, no, it's not equal to a degree course. We are not claiming that. It's not, in an undergrad, Mansi would have spent a year before she even started to spell interior. है ना, 1 साल तो उसने पूरा जो है फंडामेंटल्स ऑफ डिजाइन पढ़े, उसमें हिस्ट्री ऑफ डिजाइन पढ़ा, ये सब है. और अब मैं तो एज डेप्यूटी हेड ऑफ एंड एकेडमिक्स में कह रही हूँ, अगर आपके पास 4 साल हैं पढ़ने के लिए तो प्लीज आप 4 साल पढ़िए. और 4 साल मतलब it's not just about 4 years. Are you willing to put in? Do you have the passion to go through the grill of 4 years of learning? Please do that. If you have 4 years, if you have the resources, time, energy, passion, money, if you have it, please do a 4-year course, because that's when you learn a lot more. There are so many people जो पहले architecture करते हैं फिर interior design करते हैं. तो मतलब अब मैं बोलूं कि नहीं आप सिर्फ इंटीरियर डिजाइन कर लीजिए और आप आर्किटेक्चर और इंटीरियर डिजाइन नहीं करिए, वो तो एक ही बात है, ऐसा तो नहीं है. लोग उसके बाद मास्टर्स भी करते हैं, पीएचडी करते हैं. तो with every
just to interject, they do a master's in just furniture design.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you can get as specialized as that.
Yeah, absolutely. Sonali has said sketching is an essential part of the interior design process. I don't see a question in it. Are you making a statement? Are you asking me? Are you telling me something? I don't know. But
we can assume that probably it's a question, and
yeah,
we had already answered part.
I think this Prachi did explain when Mansi was showing her sketches. Yes, sketching, but not necessarily sketching at an art school level. Where you do live sketches and still lives, and not that sort of sketching, but sketching to be able to design.
Snehanshu, I want to use this, and I mean, maybe the webinar is turning into a teaching moment at this time. But I do want to say this about sketching, because I'm actually sometimes surprised at the frequency that we are asked this question, not only for interiors, for anything, the mistake is that most people think sketching is synonymous with art and art is synonymous with design. ऐसा नहीं है ना, ये नहीं है. दूसरी बात जो मुझे लगता है लोग मिसकंसेप्शन लेके घूमते हैं कि स्केचिंग इज डिजाइनिंग. नो, स्केचिंग इज अ टूल. जैसे कारपेंट्री के लिए आपको एक हथौड़े की जरूरत है, बट हथौड़ा इज नॉट कारपेंट्री. Right? Sketching is a tool which allows you to design. But how? I'll tell you. Sketching is a tool for thinking. Sabse pehle, and that is the most powerful tool that a designer has. Because like you were seeing, and I don't mind going back to those sketches. And I'm so glad, Mansi, that you put your so-called not great sketches. Mansi is thinking here. Are these great sketches? If you ask me as her teacher, they are great because they are telling me her thought process. But if you're asking me, are these pretty sketches, impressive sketches, beautiful to look at? Obviously, any layman can tell you that these are just scribbles. This is where Mansi was using her sketching to think. This sketch on the left is a prime example of Mansi's thinking. It helped her take her thinking forward. So yes, sketching is required, but this level of sketching, and we all can do. I feel sad for everybody. You know, मेरा favorite example है. मुझे दुनिया में एक बच्चा दिखा दो, साल भर का, 2 साल का, 3 साल का, जिसने स्क्रिबल ना किया और ड्राइंग ना किया. एक बच्चा दिखा दो दुनिया में. You will not find a single child who has not scribbled, doodled, drawn. Everybody can draw. Before they can write, writing is difficult. अक्षर ज्ञान मुश्किल है, draw करना आसान है, right? So everybody can draw. It's unfortunate that in 18 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years of our life, somebody tells us that we don't know how to draw, and we start believing that we don't know how to draw. It's a different kind of drawing. I also can't draw like Van Gogh or Picasso. I can't draw as well as Mansi can draw. I have no qualms in admitting it. And Mansi knows it. I can't draw that well. Mansi is a far better sketcher than me. And Snehanshu is a far better sketcher than both Mansi and me put together. Right? But is that what Snehanshu gets valued for or hired for? No. Right? So that's where I would like to leave the question of sketching. Will you teach all the concepts that you teach in the 4 years? I again find this to be a funny type of a question. And
yeah, so we don't teach concepts. Basically, that is what we get you to conceptualize. We do not teach concepts. And that, I think that's where the difference.
Beautifully put, Snehanshu, but I don't know if the audience really understood the...
So maybe they mean by concepts, they mean this idea of themes, which we were discussing a little while ago.
No, I think they probably meant कि जितने वो मतलब ये लोग principle of design को भी concept ही कह रहे हैं,
concept कह रहे हैं, or they are thinking that there are ready-made design solutions.
Models,
there aren't any
modules or something like that.
Probably. Yeah. So designs are, so for instance, you would get these books which says 100 house plans, and you select one out of that and get it made, right? Now, that's not the way a designer works. They never repeat themselves. Each design is different because the site is different, the clients are different, the context is different. So you conceptualize a design, and we teach you how to conceptualize a design. It isn't about that you have 100 concepts and you fit that 99th concept into a certain site. It doesn't work like that. So I hope that answers the question.
If I interpret the question, Snehanshu, what they mean is that all the topics, all the subject areas that you cover in
4 years.
In the 4-year course, do you teach all of that? You know, it's the same thing, यार. मतलब जिंदगी में कोई भी चीज का शॉर्टकट नहीं है और कोई भी चीज का क्विक फिक्स नहीं है और कोई भी चीज का मतलब गाड़ियां हम बना ले रहे हैं फास्टर रनिंग कार्स एंड उससे हम सोच रहे हैं कि सारे डिस्टेंस हमारी जिंदगी में जल्दी कवर होने की कोई गाड़ी होगी. जो चीज आप 4 साल में सीखते हो वो आप 4 साल में सीखते हो, ठीक है, और जो चीज आप 26 हफ्ते में सीख सकते हो वो हम जबरदस्त तरह से सिखाएंगे. और बहुत लंबा कॉन्वर्सेशन है ये. हम बोले कि 5 साल में जो आर्किटेक्चर में पढ़ाते हैं उसका कितना परसेंट इंटीरियर डिजाइन में आ जाएगा और उसका कितना परसेंट 26. ये सब दीज आर ऑल यू नो नॉट, मतलब सेल्स करने के लिए बातें जिन्हें करनी है वो कर सकते हैं ये बातें, बट ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. जो कॉन्सेप्ट्स, जो थ्योरीज, जो सब्जेक्ट एरिया, टॉपिक नेसेसरी है सीखने के लिए टू स्टार्ट एन इंटेलिजेंट प्लॉजिबल इंटीरियर डिजाइन प्रैक्टिस, वो सिखाए जाएंगे. 4 साल में उनकी बहुत सारी और चीजें हो जाती है. 4 years means how many? 32 into 4. 32 into 4 is 128. Is my math correct? 128 weeks. 128 weeks of minimum 40 hours
Yeah.
Right? It's close to 1200 hours of, no, 4800 hours of learning.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't even want to compare what happens in 4800 hours of learning and a 300 hours of learning.
It cannot be compared.
Yeah, and if you, I'm telling this honestly, मैं सामने से बोल रही हूँ. If you have the resources to invest in a 4-year degree program, and by resources I also mean your own, you are a resource.
Yeah.
अपनी रातों के, you know, burning the midnight oil, 4 साल देना एक चीज को. So you are a resource. The money that you pay as fees and for other things, वो एक चीज है.
And the time you spend.
And the time you spend. So अगर वो 4 साल है तो please and छोड़ो कहीं पे भी 4 साल है तुम्हारे पास तो 4 साल पढ़ो. फिर उसको don't try to shortchange it into a 26-week thing.
Yeah.
But if you have 26 weeks or 20 weeks, then increase it to 26 weeks. If you have 35 weeks, then consider the 26 weeks. So let's not compare, two different types of courses at all. I don't see any other question, but I think we'll just wait for 3 minutes to sort of, in case there are any other questions. But I thought I'll have a question for Mansi. कभी-कभी पकड़ में आते हैं ना ये हमारे.
Now that they have left the college.
मतलब देखिए जब जरूरत होती है तो आ जाते हैं.
आ जाते हैं. That is the niceness.
याद करते हैं तो ये आ जाते हैं. तो मानसी मतलब पढ़ाई भी कर ली तुमने और पढ़ाई के टाइम पे इंटर्नशिप करी और फिर अब now you are working independently in the industry. When I say independently, without the chhatra chhaya of your teachers, है ना? So what do you think? And you know the context of and that it's just a 26-week course as compared to what you did. What do you, according to you, are these essential चीजें? अगर मैं बोलूँ कि वो 4 साल में से तुम बाकी सब सीखा हुआ भूल जाओ, ये 4-5 चीजें, ये 4-5 skills, ये 4-5 knowledge बहुत essential है जो तुमने in the last 1 year you have been 2 years, but as long as you've been working, you've been applying them. What are those few topics that you find very important? Because you're a fresher, in the industry. तो हम स्नेहांशु और मैं कहीं से भी देखते ना इंडस्ट्री को, the fact is कि graduates तो वैसे ही देखेंगे इंडस्ट्री को जैसे तुमने देखा है. So what are those things?
So yeah, I mean, it's a very wide topic to answer. A very wide question. I mean, I can list down a lot of things that are really important, which we have been taught. But to start with, I would say actually examining the things which how we did in L4. The very first thing was understanding ergonomics of a human being and understanding furniture, understanding the space, what actually human being require to move around in a space. So that is something which is really important. If you don't understand that, you will just get in a loop of decoration. So designing starts from that guts. So one is that. Second, I would say technical things definitely help, but that will grow as we grow. That we learn as we grow. So we can start with that. I mean, if we get a ABCD of that, then we'll be good ahead to go with that. Another thing is, I would come back to the sketching and modeling wala part, which is show how you want to design, show what you are going to design, and actually representing it in a very simple form, which a client or a teacher or a person or a layman, anyone can understand. If a client can't understand what he's going to get out of what he's paying, he'll never understand out of a huge 3D visualization which you get done. I mean, colors, decoration, lighting, everything is fine. That will come up with personal aesthetics and choice. But designing is something which will come with the creative head. And if you can't build upon that creativity, then you'll just get in the loop of copying things down from Pinterest and then putting it on that thing. So I mean, it does happen in real life. Like as far as I have experience, I'm a very fresh to it. But I just have 1.5 years of experience right now. But I mean, I can't comment on the whole industry. But people do go for just the look and feel of it and understanding the colors and materials to be the theme of it. But we don't understand the user experience. We don't understand that how a design is actually being treated on site and with the climate and with the site context and how is the material getting exported, imported, everything, something like that. But this is something that we learn and learn and learn always. But if we come down to a very basic 4 3 points, is one is the anthropometrics and ergonomics. Second is the sketching and basic 3D modeling and physical 3D, whatever it is. And understanding basic techniques. And then I would say understand the materials, go out, step out, see the sources, see the market, and just go and ask for prices. Just go and ask for the cost. That can give you a hint. That can give you a start.
And I'll add one more thing. Mansi ने इसलिए शायद नहीं बोला because it comes naturally to her. The other thing to learn is important thing to learn. I think is to learn how to learn.
Yeah.
And work hard.
Be ready for the feedback.
That's right.
And the ability to work hard. मैं तो हमेशा मैं तो बोलती हूँ मैं तो मेरी लाइफ ट्रेनिंग हो गई डिजाइन स्कूल में जाके मतलब डिजाइन स्कूल मैंने लाइक इफ आई कुड गो थ्रू द रिगर ऑफ डिजाइन स्कूल ब्रिंग इट ऑन नो you know so you have to the point of this is that you have to be willing to work hard.
Yes.
And this is not just for the course period. Sorry, I'm cutting you short. This is not just for the course period. This is lifetime. You can't just be rigorous and work hard for like even 16 hours a day, I would say. Even that, if you can't be ready for that, then I mean,
so many times, you know, when I get asked this that आप ये पढ़ा दोगे, आप ये पढ़ा, और ये सिर्फ एंड में नहीं, ये IIAD में भी जब एडमिशन होता था और बड़ा वैलिड क्वेश्चन है, आप ये पढ़ाएंगे, आप वो पढ़ाएंगे, आप वो पढ़ाएंगे, तो मैं सबको ये बोलती थी कि हम तो बहुत कुछ पढ़ा देंगे, आप क्या सीखेंगे? Because you know this learning, a teacher can design a learning experience, but what does a student, how much are you able to extract from that experience? You know, that is up to you. So in these 300 plus hours of learning that is being packed into this course, how much are you able to extract out of it? And that is why I feel that people who will, if 10, 20, 30 people graduate from a batch of And Academy, there will be different levels. Depending on how much, like Snehanshu was saying, कि हम input देंगे, फिर उस पे आपको कुछ effort assignment होगा, practice task होगी, उसको आप कितना करते चले जाएंगे. That will change the quality of the interior designer that you will be at the end of this 26 weeks and after completing the course 1 year after that, you know, because you would have got your fundamentals, you would have got your basics in place, and then you would have learned, your learning curve within the industry will be higher. That is what a good educational experience can do. अच्छी पढ़ाई सिर्फ ये कराती है कि आगे आप कितनी तेज भागे, फर्स्ट गियर से सेकंड गियर में कितनी तेज जाते हैं ये नहीं, उसके बाद और चढ़ाई पे फोर्थ गियर में चढ़ा देते हो गाड़ी या नहीं. That's what a good course does. ये सिर्फ ये नहीं कि 100 मीटर के अंदर फर्स्ट गियर से मेरी गाड़ी जो है फोर्थ गियर में पहुंच जाती है. That's not the only this thing. चढ़ाई पे चढ़ पाएगी. So that's what a good course does. And just a announcement, Asha, from my end, is that the interior design course at And Academy starts on 18th of June. So, which is 20 days from now?
Just 20 days.
Just 20 days.
Yes.
So, yeah, we already have students enrolled, and the last 20 days for whoever else wants to get onto the bus.
Yeah, yes. And whoever is interested in interior design can get in touch with our design counselors and they'll help you through the process. If you have any other questions, they can take you through, answer all your minor queries. Of course, Prachi, Snehanshu, Mansi, everyone here has talked so much about in depth about interior design, about design as a whole, about their share their personal experience through the journey. And yes, whether it's as we were discussing, whether it's a 4-year or 4-year course or a 26-week course, it also, the learning never stops. There is always, the learning keeps on growing. As Mansi pointed out, you need to go out and find your material. Every project is a learning that you, even after your course is done, every project that you're working on is your learning. And yes, so keep growing, keep designing, get in touch with an academy and our design counselors. I think it is a beautifully curated 26-week long interior design program that has everything in it, with the ample amount of teaching time, experience time, work time, understanding, interactive sessions and everything. So yes, that's what an academy is about: accessibility of design, design education, and affordability, and making it available for everyone.